Leadership Journey What You Must Know panel, Joe Zafian. And Joe is past district governor, 2001, 2002. And he's also a distinguished Toastmaster, as are all of our panelists. All of our panelists are past district governors and are distinguished Toastmasters. They represent many years of leadership in District 53 and a combined membership of 124 years. Woo! Yes.
Who's the one that holds the most of them?
Probably Ray.
That would be Ray Johnson.
Ray.
And now these people have served as district secretaries, treasurers, public relations officers, area and division governors, and a past international director. Since serving in their official district leadership roles, these leaders have continued to serve the district in advisory and other roles for the benefit of our Toastmasters members. Please give a warm round of applause for these outstanding leaders. And now, I'll hand it over to Joe.
Thank you. Okay, we have 4 past district governors joining me here on the panel. We have Val Albert, who is your current and past district governor. Will Ryan. Frank Kane. To get us started, I'd like to ask each of our past district governors if they could talk a little bit about their leadership journey.
Thank you, Joe. Well, my leadership journey has culminated in a path of 22 years this year, which I'm very, very proud of. I'll always be a Toastmaster. Oddly enough, it began in the corporate environment where I worked at the time, and I thought the Toastmasters Club was something that our company did for the employees. I didn't even know that there was anything outside the confines of the corporation. The very first time I saw an area governor, I looked up and went, I want to be him when I grow up. And that's how my leadership journey started 22 years ago.
Thank you. Oddly enough, Val features in my story on how I decided to run for senior team. I heard her speak when she was LGEM, maybe LGET, one or the other, I can't remember which. And she did such a great job. I said, I gotta do that. So after I'd done area and division governor, I then had a 1-year conversation with my wife. Because when you take on a senior team, it's not a casual undertaking. It's a family experience. And once we agreed, it's been a marvelous, I'm gonna tell you one thing. In all my years in corporate America, I never learned anywhere near as much as I did in my time in Toastmasters, particularly senior team.
In 1974, I was in the corporate world and had occasions to do presentations to management, and it seemed like at the end, I was always handed my head on a plate. So in January of '75, when I heard a Toastmasters Club was forming at the company, I decided it was time to join and do something about my presentation skills. I was an area governor sometime in the early 80s, maybe 82, 83. And at the time I was involved in 2 other heavy-duty volunteer jobs, so I wasn't interested in moving up in the organization at that point. But then in 1990, I heard that there was a vacancy at Division C governor, and would somebody who has the prerequisites please step up? My first reaction was, I'm too busy. Then I thought about it and said, I've got to be better than a vacancy. So I stepped up and called Bob Bradshaw, who was the district governor at the time, and volunteered to take that office. Well, a few months later, Bob called me back and said, have you thought about your future leadership roles in Toastmasters? And I said, I thought I'd make a good district treasurer. And Bob says, we were hoping you'd go for lieutenant governor marketing. Well, word about that got out later, and I've done 6 terms as district treasurer since then.
From a member of a health club I belong to, and he invited me to an open house. And to tell you the truth, I wasn't interested in being a better communicator. I didn't care about the leadership. I didn't know anything about it, but I went anyway because I didn't want to hurt his feelings. That's why I went to Toastmasters. That's the truth. And then I got there, and I realized that this club that I just joined, and I did join it shortly thereafter, had no less, I believe, 5 past district governors in it at the time. And you can imagine being in a club like that. It was almost expected that you would do something beyond being just a regular member. And I was pushed along and prodded along and kicked and all tricked a little bit once in a while. But the next thing I knew, I was a district secretary. I did that for 2 years, then area governor, division governor. And again, because of the environment that I was in and the club that I was in, I thought it was expected. And I will be honest, I'm so glad I did it. I really and truly am. Happy to be here today, as a matter of fact.
Okay, we're going to start the panel off with Val here. And if you could, please tell us, why did you take on the leadership journey?
Thank you, Joe. One of the reasons I took on the leadership journey was I had hunger inside to do something above and beyond what I was currently doing in my workplace. I wanted to be marketable in my corporation and certainly wanted promotions, but I had a hunger to be involved in my community as well. I went to a city council meeting and I went with a group of neighbors. We were against a proposal that was coming through the city council. And I remember my neighbors all took the step back and I was left standing in front to speak to the issue. And it was at that time that I realized I had something there that I needed to develop. And I wanted to feel more comfortable with dealing with other people, interacting with individuals, sharing an experience. And that's what I got when I joined Toastmasters. It was a shared experience. I always tell Toastmasters, when you join for very individual reasons. No one joins Toastmasters to be a better public speaker. They join Toastmasters because they can't communicate, whether it's one-on-one or 1 to 20. They just want to be a better communicator and a better leader in their world, in their marketplace, in their community. So when I look at it, I think it enticed me when they announced that they were going to form a Toastmaster Club, enough to want to explore what the possibilities were that could apply to me personally. But once I joined the club, I found out that it was a collective journey. And that is what kept me going year after year and trying new and different experiences in leadership. You can hold your applause otherwise. I think maybe we'll hold your applause and then we'll do a big sparkle toot at the end, maybe.
Will? I don't see it. How is district leadership different from club leadership?
Good question. There's got several things that strike me as different. For one thing, when you're in district leadership, you're quite a bit removed from the day-to-day action at the club level. One of the great things about being a club leader is you get to see the impact of your decisions, the impact of what directions you take a club in. And I'm not saying individually, but the collective group of club officers. At the district level, first of all, you've got a huge population. In my case, there were about 3,000 Toastmasters the year I was district governor. And if I stood back and looked at that, it was like awe-inspiring. And yet, to have had some material impact on those individuals as a leader was totally thrilling.
Can't help it, gal. We just can't help it.
Ray, what kind of commitment is needed from somebody to take on a district leadership role?
Okay, Joe. I guess it depends on the role. early in my Toastmasters years, I thought club vice president of education was the busiest job in Toastmasters. Then I discovered a while later that it was area governor. I had a particularly busy year as a division governor because one of my area governors was out sick for quite a while, so I did his club visits for him. It's a thing that grows on you. You do have to learn to organize your time and plan what you're doing. My first year in the top 3 leaders, the lieutenant governor of marketing, the only real accomplishment I recall is getting the district directory out on time. Fortunately, we had a good club extension chairman that year, and we did bring in a lot of new clubs, so we met the objectives, but I did not feel like I made a major contribution to it. By the time I was lieutenant governor of education and training, I was all with the program, going all out to do anything I could for the good of the organization, and that carried on for the next few years. Oh, yeah, just one hint, one thing I learned in that time. No matter how late it is at night, no matter how tired I am, is there something I can do now that if I do it now, it will be easier than if I wait until tomorrow. For example, if I get it out in the mailbox now, that's fine. But if I don't, and I wait till tomorrow, I've got to make a trip to the post office. There's just little things like that. You can save your time, and when your time gets valuable, you start realizing and looking for those opportunities.
Frank, talk about the different district roles that you have had and other roles, and what was your favorite among those?
As I mentioned earlier, I was I believe a secretary for 2 years, then area governor, division governor, and right up to district governor. My favorite, perhaps, might have been district secretary, and I'll tell you why. I got into that very early on in my Toastmaster career, and I didn't know anyone really like I see a lot of familiar faces out there now, but I didn't know anyone back then. I didn't even know how Toastmasters worked, what made it happen. Yet, in those 2 years as district secretary, I found that I was so involved and working at the credentials table with Bob Bradshaw and attending all the different conferences. I got to know the people better. I got to know what made Toastmasters tick. I had a complete understanding of the rules and regulations, so that when I did go into an area governor position, I knew exactly what needed to be done. There was no doubt in my mind. I felt very confident. That's why I'd say the secretary was probably the most gratifying of all the jobs I've had.
Val, your turn.
Okay.
This is the time. What do you wish you had known before taking on any particular role that you didn't know?
That's a very intriguing question. I have one huge fault. I have a disease, and it's called, I'm a lifelong procrastinator. And the one thing I think I really wished I had learned before I took the leadership journey, my very first baby steps, was to understand time management and how to organize myself, and to understand what rewards you can reap by doing the job when it's time to do it and not putting it off. So when I entered leadership, the first thing I made, a first promise to myself, was that I was going to answer an email within 24 hours. I was going to return a phone call within 24 to 48 hours. If I was going to research something, I was going to do it within that first 48-hour cycle. That enabled me to overcome some of the procrastinating habits that I had, and allowed me to be more effective in what I was doing in leadership. And I must say, is the most valuable tool you can have as a leader is to be able to say, you can manage your time, manage a busy life, because everybody's busy. That's not the issue. It's how you manage your busy. And if you can manage your busy, and you can organize yourself personally, you'll be a much more effective leader. And I found that that skill grew and grew and grew as I took on different leadership roles.
Okay, thank you, Val. Will, what did the leadership journey teach you about yourself?
Excellent question.
Can you repeat the question, please?
The question was, what did the leadership journey teach me about myself? First of all, there's a very big difference between being a corporate leader and being a Toastmasters leader. So one of the things that I learned, and what I say frequently, is that when you learn how to motivate people using only carrots, because we don't have any sticks, that you can lead anywhere. I must say I was very skeptical of that, because when you're a senior person with a large organization, it's expected that you do thus and such. I wish I'd known back before I had those positions about leadership and Toastmasters. One thing I'd like to point out is that I was really blessed with my 3 years on the senior team. There's a distinction in the international organization called excellence in leadership. It is awarded to districts that achieve distinguished 3 consecutive years. In the history of our district, it's been done 3 times. I was blessed to have a team that really put out, and we achieved excellence in leadership.
Okay, Ray, district leadership, it can be challenging. What's the biggest challenge you faced in your district leadership, and how did you grow from that challenge?
For me, it's dealing with people problems. It's difficult for me personally to do that, so it was a skill I had to learn. And of course, I had a few problem people in the organization. I had an area governor, well, I had a person who got inspired by my acceptance speech when I was elected district governor, offered to do something for her. I appointed her area governor. She never did a club visit, and I lost 2 clubs in that area that year. And so these are the areas where I had difficulty dealing with problem people. It's easy to deal with enthusiastic people, people who meet their commitments. They do the things that they say that they will. But I'm not very good at turning those others around. And I learned a lot, and maybe I'm a little better, but that's still a weak area for me.
Frank, if somebody takes on the role of a district officer, what resources are out there to help them succeed?
I believe the resources available to a brand new district officer are all around you. It's the people you're following and the people behind you that you can learn from. So I would encourage anyone that steps up into an area governor position or division governor at some point, don't forget the person you just replaced. They could be your best asset. And in my case, as district governor, I followed Val Albert, and she became a real mentor for me. To this day, she's still a mentor. And throughout my career as a district officer, I was very fortunate to have great people around me, and I used them, and absolutely used them, because I wasn't the brightest bulb on the tree when it came to a lot of things. Val is, I just wasn't. I don't know if I have ADD or whatever it is. I just have a hard time soaking things in. But yeah, I can't thank those people enough for helping me and stepping up. And there were certain people are always there when you need them. And I was, again, very fortunate that I had in that era people that were willing to do that. That was about 10 years ago. And they just expanded just a little bit on this. As a district governor, you used to get to pick a theme. We were fortunate to do that. They don't do that anymore. And that theme set the tone for the year. And my theme was make a difference, because I felt as a district officer that was my opportunity to make a difference. And I encouraged everyone in that district that year to try to do that, make a difference for your fellow Toastmaster. And that's probably works back to why I felt I was successful, because of just the people around me. I was just great people, very enthusiastic, willing to put in the time. So if you ever get to that point, you find yourself at a district level, again, make sure that you pick a good mentor and you surround yourself with people that are enthusiastic and willing and able to help, because they will. It's amazing, people who like to help people.
Val, in to lead, you have to put together a team, as you mentioned. How do you identify people to put on your team?
I love that question. As some of you know, or most of you may or may not know, I was very fortunate to have been elected to the International Board of Directors. I served a 2-year term on the Board of Directors from 2006 to 2008. And I had the specific privilege of managing all of the districts in our region. At that time, there were 7 districts within the region, from the Washington, D.C. area up through the Maritimes of Canada. And I learned over those years a valuable, valuable lesson. You can identify leaders by what motivates them to take the journey. Now, there are 2 kinds of leaders. Ones who seek title, and titles satisfactory enough for them. That's what they want to serve for. They want to check the box, and they want the title. That's exactly how they lead. There are others who wish to serve others, and serve with others. Those are the leaders. Those are the ones that will take you to your greatest heights. And you don't do it alone. You have to identify individuals that have the same passion and enthusiasm that you do for what you're about to embark upon. So any leadership journey and identifying team members, I will look for enthusiasm over experience any day, and I will look for a person who's motivated by servancy rather than self-servancy. Wrong way.
Well, when you served as area governor, what was the learning experience with being an area governor first time?
Y'all hear the question? What did I learn about being area governor? The first thing I learned was to pay attention. Because when I was appointed area governor, there were only 2 clubs in my area, which meant no matter what I did, it was impossible to become distinguished because it was an illegitimate area. You had to have at least 3. And so it taught me humility. It taught me to be with what's there rather than what I would prefer to have be there. It taught me to look for leaders. It taught me to ask good questions and then be quiet and listen. We all have a problem with that in Toastmasters because we like to talk. And so in spite of the fact that I had no possibility of ever becoming a distinguished area governor, the adversity that I found because of the lack of leadership in the district in the area in that time, taught me a tremendous amount. So I highly recommend area governors. As a matter of fact, one day I may even go back and try it again.
Okay, Ray, how can a leader get clubs to get involved in district events like contests, TLI, conferences, things like that?
I'm not sure I'm the right person to ask about that because I'm in I'm in 3 clubs. One of them, it is very hard to get anybody to leave the building. Fortunately, there are 3 members of that club here today, and that's a recent record for recent history. In fact, a few years ago, we actually hosted an area contest in the building, and the only 2 people from our club that showed up were Don Logie and me. So how do you get people motivated? Well, I've got one in the room, Tony Hall, who has shown some interest in becoming a leader of the club, and she's actually doing things to help the club, not just taking on a role. So when I saw that she had an interest in coming to a district conference, I encouraged it, and she's here. So there are little things you can do, but going back to, I guess it was Val's question earlier, how do you look for leaders? Or how do you recognize them? Start looking early. Look for the potential. Look for people who are actually living up to their commitments. Look for the enthusiasm. And then maybe in a couple of years when you need to pick a leader, you know who you should pick.
Okay, Frank, as district governor or in any of your district roles, what was the toughest decision you had to make, and how did you go about making that decision?
By the way, I had some great answers for these other questions. Anyhow, the toughest decision I had to make, because I'm a people person, I don't want to hurt feelings, anyone's feelings. It's just not my nature. But there was an area governor at the time that, who should remain nameless, but just wasn't doing the job. Wouldn't or couldn't or didn't care about the contests, planning for them, or just anything. It just wasn't getting any results whatsoever. So I knew it came a point in time where I had to replace this person, because I had a person in the wings that was begging to do it. So I reluctantly took this person aside, and I explained that it's just not working out. It might be better that we go in another direction. And I did that, and it still hurts. I don't believe she was even hurt over it. I mean, it's okay, it's her attitude. But that person that replaced her, and actually ended up becoming a district governor themselves. So I picked the right person. That was a tough decision, because we're not paid to do this. This is strictly voluntary. And when someone volunteers and you still have to sort of let them go, that was tough.
Val, you've done this twice. How do you manage to keep yourself motivated, especially, sometimes it can get a little tiring, so how do you keep yourself motivated and inspired to go on?
I love that question. I don't care how I feel. I've had some real physical challenges over the last few years, and I've had to deal with some pain issues. I don't care what I'm feeling like, but when I'm around my Toastmaster family, I feel no pain. I must say, I keep inspired because just being in the room with my friends, my Toastmaster friends, and now after being on the board, I know people all over the world. So when I go to international convention, it's like a family reunion. I see people once a year, but we hug each other and we really respect each other. And I keep myself motivated by keeping busy and involved and enjoying the moment that I'm in. And when I was district governor in 2002, 2003, I thought that was the pinnacle. That was where I was going. That was where I wanted to be. And then I realized another door was opening on the international level. And it inspired me, it motivated me to try. Did I succeed the first time? Absolutely not. But that was one of the most valuable learning lessons I've ever had in the organization, was failure. The second time I ran was a landslide, I can guarantee you. And after I became an international director and then a past international director, I said, wow, there's nowhere else to go but international president, vice president, international president. And I made the conscious decision that I wanted to, although it was enticing, I wanted to serve my district. So I sat for a few years in my club and I tried to help my club grow and get back to my roots. And then an opportunity came along. Again, to be a lieutenant governor of education and training and consequently a district governor for a second time. A whole new journey, completely different than the first journey I took. And again, a door of opportunity opening, a way for me to learn and grow and stay connected with my roots, my Toastmaster family and my Toastmaster friends. So every single thing that I've done in this organization has moved me past pain, suffering, personal problems, emotional thoughts and feelings, hard times with the family. It's moved me beyond that. This organization literally got me out of a hospital and a cancer bed and onto much greater, more positive things in my life. And that's how I stay motivated, by keeping in touch with every single root I have in this organization and staying involved.
Departing a little bit from the district leadership, but I think it's still applicable. What do you say to people who don't really embrace the Toastmasters program and want to go their own way? How do you, as a leader, help steer the organization in the right direction?
As I said earlier, one of the things that techniques of communicating that I really prefer is to ask provocative questions and then respond in context. For example, you're meeting someone who knows very little about Toastmasters. The tendency we all have when they press the Toastmaster button, tell me about Toastmasters, is to just start and it comes out and it keeps going and going. Try to avoid that. It's so much better to ask them, tell me a little bit about your background. What are you doing in the business world? What are you doing in your family? Do you belong to civic? And what comes out of that is a real benefit when they learn to do it better. And therein lies the advantage, one of the key advantages of Toastmasters. We learn by doing. The fees are ridiculously low. So I've had people say, it can't be any good, it's too cheap. Once you get immersed and you develop that communication style, that leadership, you can go anywhere you want. And you become a role model for others in your club, in your area, and so on.
Ray, since you first came into leadership, how have you seen the organization change?
Right. You might enjoy this one. The district leadership team got into using email the year after I was district governor. It was all paper mail. Talk about making the trip to the post office. I'd sit up in my office late at night, getting paper mailings out to my area governors and to my division governors and get it in the mailbox. So the mailman would pick it up and I wouldn't have to make that trip to the post office. It was a different world then. The communication is a lot easier thanks to email. I still don't use social media. I joke that my cell phone has a rotary dial and a backpack to carry the battery. and my wife would echo that. But, so technology-wise, there's a huge change. I mean, I talked about being district treasurer. The first several times I did it, we filled out the forms on pencil and paper. The last time I did it, it was Excel spreadsheets, which were a little better, and now you have to interact with the Toastmasters website and their accounting system to do the job. So in an area where I have a lot of experience, that has changed drastically over the last 20 years.
Frank, what do you see as the biggest challenge for our future leaders, and how can the past leaders help them through those challenges?
Joe just asked me what I thought the biggest challenge for our future leaders might be. And I think our biggest challenge is finding future leaders, honestly. It's a busy world out there. People are wearing several hats at their job. And I've asked a lot of people to step up at the club level, and when I was at the district level, the same thing. And I used to hear, I'm too busy, kids take up a lot of my time, and let's face it, they do. But if you have a good feeling in your heart about this organization, as I do, and I hope most of you do here today, you can find the time. So the challenge is not so much in, well, it's mostly finding it. It's difficult to find people just willing to step up and do that. And right now, we're sitting here, and we're hoping that by doing this, by the way, that some of you who haven't challenged yourselves consider this step. And if you are considering it, please, and I'll let Joe make the final comment on that, but we're always available to you. Our emails and phone numbers are out there. Don't hesitate to at least inquire and ask, is this something I can do? It's so gratifying once you do it, and you learn from it, and you grow from it, you make a lot of friends. It's just something I encourage everyone to give it a try. But finding those leaders, let's face it, it's not low-hanging fruit, as they say.
Okay, no, stay down there.
Oh.
We're gonna go backwards to wrap up. and everybody's gonna answer the same question. What advice would you give somebody who wants to be our future district governor?
The best advice I'd have for that person might be, first of all, to stay close to your district leaders that we have today. Watch what they do, how they do it. We'll be setting examples for you along the way. Try to emulate that. I mentioned earlier in one of my questions is surround yourself with those kinds of people. When you're moving up the ladder, from whether it be a president of a club or into an area governor position, it's important that you don't listen to negative talk. And there's always people out there that will have something not so nice to say. Oh, this is a lot of work. I don't have time for this. And they're out there. Just ignore that, because most of us, I believe, are very motivated, or we wouldn't be here today, as a matter of fact. So my best advice is don't be afraid to walk up to a district governor or one of your lieutenant governors at a meeting like this and say, I might be interested in being an area governor someday. How do I go about it? They'll give you the time, I promise you. They will give you the time. And it's got to start somewhere, and it starts with you inquiring as to what will it take for me to be whatever position you're looking for. And if you get into that position and you do a good job at it, it's almost automatic, because by then you've got the fire in you and you'll want to get ahead. It's just not, I never ran for district governor, by the way. I just did. It kind of happened. And I just went along and did my job and enjoyed what I did, and I liked the people who were around me and so forth. And as it turned out, that's what I ended up to be. But I didn't start out wanting to be a district governor. That's the way it works. So I hope that answered the question.
Right. What advice?
It's a very inexpensive way to get a valuable education. So serving as area governor and division governor is, I would say, equivalent of getting a master's degree in management. Serving in the top 3 leadership teams is the equivalent of getting a PhD in management. You really learn by the experience. I can't imagine how much I've learned by it, and how much I still use several years after my senior role. It's just, one, you get inspired, and being inspired helps you to learn more. You help people along the way, you see them grow. I remember one of the charter members of my first club 39 years ago. She could not stand in front of a group and talk. She'd look at those eyes and she would see. She could talk to you one-on-one, and you realize she was quite intelligent, but she just could not talk to that group of eyes out there. Well, at our charter dinner, she served as table topics master. We had the mayor of the town there, the president of the company, and she did a fantastic job. She grew that much in a few months that we were forming that club. So it's worth seeing people develop.
I would begin by suggesting you ask yourself a question. What are you doing for yourself? How are you developing your inner being? How are you developing your communication skills? What do you know about leadership? And the more introspective you can become, the greater the likelihood that you'll be willing to make the commitment for Toastmasters leadership. I'm harking back to years ago. I met the head of HR for Mass Mutual, and they were debating what to do with Toastmasters, and one of the senior execs in the company said, well, we've got this communications things handled already. We don't really need Toastmasters. So how do you handle it? Well, we use an organization, a company called Communispond. That's interesting. How much is Communispond? It's a little over $2,000 per employee. Interesting. And is it an ongoing program, or is it one shot, you learn fire hose approach, and then you go? And he said, what's your point? I said, the point is that if you interact, invest in yourself, immerse yourself in the Toastmasters organization, you can't help but achieve significant personal growth.
Thank you, Bill. I think what I'd like to say about aspiring leadership is to recommend that you first take the baby steps. The baby steps is where you start to get a feeling of empowerment and a feeling of enthusiasm and of passion for serving with others. And then, as you move, work on a conference committee. Help to organize a special event for the district. You become intimately involved with the leaders of the district. You get to make great friendships through area governorships and division governors. And then you are fully embracing all of the individuals around you. You're being mentored. And the next thing you turn around and look, you are the mentor. So take the baby step, take the first step, see where the journey takes you. The journey may not take you to district governor, like Frank said. He didn't start out wanting to be a district governor. The journey that he took created a pathway to the district governorship. I didn't start out in the organization wanting to sit on the board of directors, but the doors of opportunity opened and the path directed me as I took those formative steps when I first joined. Had I never stepped out of my club, I never would have had the invaluable experiences that I've had over the years. And every time I took a step forward, I surrounded myself with people of excellence that could mentor me along the way. And now I look back and people are saying to me that I'm their mentor. And I'm in awe over that, because I've looked to so many other people to help me. And in the process, I have fully come full circle and become a mentor myself. So it's an incredible journey. You can't miss. You don't want to leave it behind you, because you never know what's around the corner. Joe?
Okay, well, I want to thank all our,
Why don't you give a few words of wisdom, Joe, because we haven't heard from
Come on.
you. Here. You've got 10 seconds.
you are low on time, but one of the things that has really made a difference for me, when I was district governor, it was 2001, 2002, and we were just getting started into the year. A few months started, we were just starting to form the team, and 9/11 happened. At that point, I could care less about Toastmasters. It wasn't important anymore. But being around the district and having the people and the support that Toastmasters can give you, I overcame a lot of that. And I think that's what leadership does for you, is by helping others, you are helping yourself. The past district governors have a passion for this organization. And if you need help, I can tell you, any of these people sitting here, they will help you. But they will not tell you what to do. They will advise you. They want to be asked to help. They're not going to jump in, but if you ask for help, it'll be there for you. And I hope all of you take this leadership journey, because I think it is life-changing, even more than just being a member of Toastmasters, how it's changed your life. The leadership goes far beyond that to really change your life and make you a better person.
I'd like to thank everyone for coming today, for taking part in this valuable conversation with our panelists. And I'd first direct you to the ballroom downstairs, and then I'm going to remind you about the evaluations and hand out these certificates to our panelists.
And one more piece of business. I want to thank everybody for submitting your questions. Many good questions, and I think it did have our panel. Some of them had a little bit stumped, I think, but they did well. And I have questions that were submitted, and Val is going to come up here and choose one card out of the pile. Kate Steele. Niantic. And to get her started on her leadership journey, we have a complete set of the Leadership Excellence series that she can use to learn about leadership and then help to inspire some new leaders herself.
Thank you.